Hello. In this video, I'm going to go over how I draw in Clip Studio and how I use Clip Studio. I actually use Clip Studio almost exclusively for drawing rather than Photoshop. So if you're trying to consider what to buy, if you just draw and if you animate frame by frame, you actually don't even probably need Photoshop. Or you could find an older version that is free rather than paying for the monthly fee. So yeah, I'm going to go over like how I use Clip Studio and digital drawing in my work. And so I primarily all scan in or use as a final like actual drawings on paper or sketches. This is not my drawing. I found this online. Just an easy way of showing how to work digitally with a drawing, right? And so this is an ink drawing that's been scanned in. You can note the texture of the paper. If you want to get rid of that, you can come up to Edit, Tonal Correction, and use any of these. I'm going to use Level Correction because it's easier for me, and just crank this white in a little bit, and you should see that paper tone drop out, right? That's no longer showing. You can keep it, of course, if you like it. It's completely up to you. So I've changed the levels to how I want it to look, and then I want the white to drop out. You can paint and draw with using like things like multiply and overlay over here, but I find this method to just be easier and to allow you to do multiple things at once. So with that layer selected, I'm going to come up to Edit and go to Convert Brightness to Opacity right here. Click on that and it has removed the white for me very nicely. The next step is to make a new layer, pull that underneath the pen layer, and then fill this with a background color. So I'm going to go back to some sort of like white light color and fill that. If your paint bucket tool doesn't work like this, it might be some sort of, let me undo that to show you what I mean. Let's say it looks like this, where it leaves some alpha channels. That just come to these tool settings right here under the paint bucket tool, and instead of referring to other layers, refer only to editing layer. And then you can fill that with white. And then of course what you can do is you can add another layer and then start drawing, painting, however you like to work, to kind of fill in colors, right? So if you want to fill in the face, you could do that way, right? And this can be incredibly flat. This can be really painterly. It is completely up to you how you do that. The next step is if you want to, let's say, colorize the line work that you've done. How you do that is you click on that layer, and you need to do this thing called an alpha lock, or lock transparent pixels, which is right here. You'll click on that, and then now when you grab any of these tools, painting tools, you can come in and just affect just the places that are actually have marks, right? So you can easily fill or paint different details to have different colors. So the hat can be one color, the face could be another color, so on. What's really cool about this method is you can also use the gradient tool. So let's see here, from red to white, I'll change it to like a yellow. If you have this layer selected, you have alpha lock on, and you just pull a gradient, you're going to get this kind of cool gradient effect. And sometimes that's enough for a drawing to make it kind of a little bit more interesting, right? So that's how you can work with an actual scan of a drawing. This also works for graphite drawings. This is not my drawing. Something I found online just to show you. And again, we can go to Edit, Tonal Correction, and change it somehow. Again, I use Level Corrections just because it's something that I've used forever. This is a histogram showing me how much of black and white is in the image, right? Did I already do this one? Yeah, so I already did this one. I undid that, and then I can go back to levels just to show you this histogram. So this shows you there's a lot of gray in this, right? Because that's where the graph is. There's no pure black, there's no pure white. And so if I wanted it to have more contrast or have more white, I could crunch that white in. You'll see it gets lighter. If I want the blacks to get blacker, or to get actually true black, I can punch this black in any distance, right? Turn the preview off and on to see the difference, and then hit OK. And likewise, come up to Edit, Convert Brightness to Opacity, and it does the same thing. So it doesn't have to be just an ink drawing. It can be a graphite drawing and works really well. All right. Talk about a little bit of my process. So here's a drawing I did where I removed the white, like I just showed you. And I took this Russian tattoo that's really cool and changed it to make it like a saint's owl so that it could say "Who dat." I thought that'd be a funny T-shirt. And so what I did is the idea. This is how I built it up and the processes that happen. So this is an actual drawing on Bristol paper that I removed the white of. I then filled the back with yellow because it's going to be gold. And you can do that a variety of ways. You can select things and fill it with the paint bucket tool. You can, I probably just painted with the pen tool here to fill that area. And here's what it looks like on black. Once I put it on black, I realized, hey, I need some more details that are missing. So then I just start adding layers, right? I changed the color of the gold. Turn off that so that you can kind of see it. And just kind of built it up. So yeah, I needed a little bit of gold at the bottom of the crowbar to denote that. I added some more highlights here, right? There's me trying a different halo without those sort of things. And then I realized, yeah, it's kind of hard. No one knows what this is. Like this, who wears bow ties with a little fleur-de-lis? So I wanted to make that more obvious. So I decided to put a Saints t-shirt on him, right? And so you can do that a variety of ways. I probably started with the outline, and you can see you can't tell what's going on if you just have that. So I probably had to turn off the black, and yeah, so that way I can actually see what I'm doing, right? So now I could actually draw where I think the t-shirt should go, right? Turn that back on so you can see. And then I would fill that, right, with the fill of the t-shirt. And then just, again, build up this layer like that. So you'll notice that there's a lot of different layers. And I do that because I'm not sure, like if I really want X detail or Y detail. So I can add these layers. And then at the end, let's say I'm happy with this and I want to make it all one single layer. I'm going to come up to select color gamut, and then just click on this. Let's see here. Why is it not letting me do that? Okay. Oh, I gotta have a layer selected maybe. All right, there we go. And so I'm gonna multiple refer all layers, and now I have all the gold essentially. And this is easy because it's all one color, and then I can make a new layer and fill that with that color. And then I'm going to deselect that, Control D. And then if I hold down Alt, I can just look at just that layer. And so I look at just that layer and that. And so now this is an image that is ready to go to the printer, right? This doesn't have a million layers, it only has one layer. And so it can be sent to the places that might screen print it. All right. Another way I work is to is to bring in a sketch, right, from my sketchbook and then digitally draw over that. So this is a case of that, right? This idea of the sun roasting the earth. And so I just, took a quick photo with my phone of that and brought that into Clip Studio. What I typically do is I turn down the opacity of that and then put a background on it so that I hate looking at the alpha. Like, it's hard to make drawings with these checkboards. So if you're in my class and I come and I see you doing this, I'm going to mock you and wonder how you aren't crazy. But yeah, so I turned down the opacity of the sketch drawing, put a new layer behind it that has an actual color, and then what I did is I built it up using blue pencil. So this is just the blue pencil marks very loosely. Like I want to make these changes to this drawing, and I use blue just because of course that's what they used back in the day. The non-photo blue pencil wouldn't show up in cameras. And so it's just a natural tendency to do that. And then what I would do is I would probably turn down the opacity of these two so they don't take up too much of my mind, right? Just to kind of give me a highlight. And then I make a pen layer. And so I'll turn off these back layers so you can see what happened. And in this case, I use this other pen called the G pen. And so on this image here, actually I'll go back to show you what I mean. I use this pen under the marker. These pens don't change thickness depending on how hard you push. So for me, they feel like rapidiographs. And so when I make these marks, they look like, especially when you're zoomed out, and as an artist, do not draw this close, because who draws this close? Nobody. And you can't even notice the difference. You can see there's a slight difference, right, between the two, but not enough from far away to actually make any difference. So for me, this mark looks like that mark that I made actually on Bristol paper. In this pen, I used, or this work, I used probably the G pen right here, and that pen, change the sizes by using open and close parentheses. The harder you press, I'm using a Cintiq here. The thicker it gets, you let go, the thinner it gets. And that's how I did this. Probably, not with that much of a variation. And so I built up that image that way, and then start adding details right on that. Some white highlights, and then I probably came back and added some white, into the eyes and the smoke to kind of bring those out and show that. This is another t-shirt idea I had. To show you that I also, use it to just make screen prints. So I thought I'd go over that, how I make that. Again, I hold down Alt to show you the sketch. So there's the sketch that I had, very loose and like, oh, that might be fun, just this kind of idea. Here's a cobra back here. And then it, of course, changes throughout time. So I probably started, these layers are not in order, right? That's more about stacking and making things hide other areas. But I started with layer 1 because that would be the first layer that was made. Turn this down to show you what I'm doing. And it's nice. I just come in here, and again, in this case, I'm using the Millipen effect, and just come in here and grab this color. And I just started, drawing directly. Make sure I'm on the right layer. And I probably use a little bit thicker of a line. And as you start to work, I would recommend making a layer where you say, okay, I use the Millipen at 12 pixels, just so that you can always go back to that. You can write down all this other stuff too on a layer that you can turn off and on. But I like this way of working, right? You just kind of come in here, you make marks, and then let's say you want to fill this area, just press G, right? Or come over G twice, or come over here and grab the paint bucket tool and just fill that area. And so, I do a little bit of I feel like I'm drawing with pen, but then I'm also feeling sometimes like I can draw as a kind of relief print. If you've ever done woodcut or lino cut, because I can just come in here and cut into this. And so in this case, what I did is I just grabbed the pen tool. You can, of course, use the eraser tool if you want to. But for fastness, I just grabbed the pen tool that I've been using and then highlight the color and then, kind of draw on top of this, right? And now I'm cutting out, and I can make implied lines, all kinds of really cool stuff, I think. And so, I started with this layer, right? And then I let's just go through and kind of build it up. Here's the sketch where I digitally added to it. Actually, I have this hand here. I should have a Molotov cocktail being thrown here. And then, let's go through and I'll just add these things and build it up. These didn't happen in the order that I'm showing them, but they did happen in terms of their layering and what they do. So here's the image I had, and I'll turn off let's see here. If you don't know where something is, you can use the arrow tool and then find it and then click on it, turn off the actual sketch layer, the blue sketch layer. And so this is what I had, right? And I knew immediately, it feels kind of busy at the top. So what's great is because I put that on a separate layer, I can just go up and turn those off. And then I'm like, this feels more like what I want it to look like. Now again, this is multiple layers, and so you have to find a way to, if you're going to go into screen printing, to make it into this so that you can easily separate it, where this is going to be the gradient that I do in screen printing. This is going to be the solid red that I do in screen printing, and so I'll show you how to do that. Number one is you'll notice on the flower at the top is I have this white line work on this, right? And so to remove, essentially what I want to do is I want to cut out the line work out of this gradient. And so how you do that is the layer with the line on it, hold down Control and click, and what will happen is it will select that line work and then come to this gradient layer, and with that selection still on, and hit the delete key. And I'll press Control D to deselect. And so now you can see I don't actually need this layer anymore because now it's been cut out of that solid, right? Then what I would do is similar to how I showed in the t-shirt that I did for the Saints, is I would actually turn off this layer. I'm going to come up to select color gamut, grab the red, come all the way to the top, make a new layer, And let's change the color, because I made it blue for final, the final actual print instead of red. And then we're going to fill with that color. Control D, deselects, and then Alt, click on the eyeball, only brings up that, right? And so now this is all just one layer that I can easily put like I did over here. Now, when you print for screen printing, you need to make it black so that it's a positive. And so I did that also for the flower to make the screen print. I thought I'd talk a little bit about, like, you might have noticed there's some areas of solid color in here and kind of how I did that. So it's pretty straightforward. Here's an example. So I have this drawing that I put on this layer. And I'm going to fill with, let's say, the same color, right? So I'll grab in here and grab on that. And I'm going to use the paint bucket tool over here and fill this. And you'll notice that there's a problem. What happened is that there's a little gap here. So there's a variety of ways you can fix that. You can come up to this layer that you drew on and fix it. You can also just come to this layer and just kind of fix it here so that there's no longer a gap. Then you can also, with this tool, like, there's an option to close the amount of gaps right here, right? And so the variety of ways to do that. So I'm going to fill that. Oops, and I think what's happening is I don't have refer other layers on. So not only that, you also have to have refer other layers on. So just pay attention to kind of the tool parameters that are up here. And again, that's right there. If you don't see it, click on that. And now it's full, but now I can't see my line work, right? And so you could do a variety of things. In this case, let's say I want it to be white. I could alpha lock it, right? Come in here and grab this yellow and then edit fill with that, and then it's going to do that, right? You'll notice that it also cut away from the outline, right? So it changed both the inside and the outside line work. And so if I don't want it to do like that, what I could do is, of course, a number of things, but I could just bring it back. So grab that, maybe grab the brush tool, and just kind of fill that back in, right? So that's how you kind of work with alpha lock a lot, is to change the line work, and especially even in just single color images. What else do I have here? Oh, and if anybody's interested in comics, like how I personally do comics, so I do it mixed. I like using markers and pen on Bristol paper. What I do is I start with a sketch on cheap paper, and then I move to a light table. You can buy them cheaply on Amazon for like 20, 30 bucks. And then use pens and markers on Bristol paper. And I just, of course, I kind of storyboard it together on paper and then just produce them like this. And then bring them into, let's see, do I have it? Should have it. There we go. And then I bring it into here. So these are the images that you saw, right? Here's this guy right here, put here. I'm just using the fill to fill in that areas, and actually adds, as you can tell, I've added some like sweat beads here, right? And then I do the text in Clip Studio because it's easy to change and make some changes. I sketch what I think the text will look like, but then I of course make it in here, and it's just nice because I can easily do it and undo it. Clip Studio does have options to make panels, but I like hand-drawn panels, so I just draw my own hand-drawn panels. If there's interest later on, I can show how I do this. So this, I didn't actually marker this entire space. What I did is I just made a marker. Let's see here if it's got it somewhere. I might have connected that, but I just on Bristol paper made a square of marker, enlarged it, and then did a mask so that it could fit in where I wanted it to. So it looks like it, belongs to all this other stuff. It's not just one tone of gray like digital gray would be. It seems to match that. So some of these things are actually marker on Bristol. Some of these things are faked marker on Bristol in this method where I'm like using a digital method, and that should be kind of how I work. If you want to know how to digitally draw just digitally, I have another tutorial that you can find with the class. Thanks.